How's Taylor as well? How's Bambino growing?
Yeah, she's good. I was always worried that she was going to turn mental when she was pregnant. We've got a very good relationship, and yeah, never been given a hard time. So then I did think, I was like, "Whoa, if there's, I've seen friends where their missus is in the second and third trimester go a bit crazy, but apart from a few extra naps, she's fine. She's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're good. We're happy. Like, there's been
How many
no
weeks are you?
hiccups so far.
How
Well,
many
she
weeks are you?
is 30, 33, maybe 34.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So countdown now.
Yeah, it could happen. It hasn't really hit me yet. Like, she's pregnant, so she knows there's a baby inside her. But to me, there's just an alien kind of chilling on the sofa with us that we haven't met yet. So I've
You've
not,
spawned a
I'm not sure
creature.
how ready I'll be. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be exciting. And if it wasn't really planned as such, but I'm 35 in May, so my first emotions were, well, probably should get around to it. I always spoke about my parents being old when they had me, and they were like 36.
Yeah, I do think just like generationally, people are pushing it back a bit longer. I don't know whether that's like a millennial thing. Is like you're always. I certainly felt the pressure of status, good job, certain amount of money, and then you wait until you're ready. But kind of what I realised is you're never really ready for kids. Like it's such a baptism into looking after something else that isn't you. And I definitely went up to when Mila was born. Like I can barely look after myself. Now I've got this dependent creature that I've got to keep alive as well.
Tucker Carlson says that everyone should have as many kids as they can as early as they can, because no man really needs to be a man until he has kids. And like, because otherwise you just you float through your 20s and 30s, not really having to take care of anything apart from yourself. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think there's a mixture of reasons. One is, for some reason, we're not allowed to talk about how difficult it is to, even little things. I earn really good money. I'm buying a house. I was like, fucking hell, this is expensive. Then house insurance, this is expensive. Council tax, this is expensive. So I think about people that aren't, writing books or running multiple businesses that, I think now I've heard that young people aren't saving money for mortgages anymore because they've just given up. And so if you think the average person is not buying a home till 34 or something, they've got student loans, debt, then so that's the negative side of it. But then the positive side is probably that women are better educated than ever. So more women want to be career focused, which I think is a double-edged sword, actually, if I'm honest. And again, Jordan Peterson's very much like, the biggest lie that women are told is that their career will be the most important thing in their life. And yeah, so there's some good things, but mostly I'd probably say it's negatives, because if people could buy houses earlier or could have spare income to have a family, I think people could do it. But like you say, they're just going to push it back as late until they feel financially ready, which could take decades for some people.
Yeah, there's definitely a sign of the times, and I think like probably for our parents' generation, whether you had two, three, four, five, financially, it wasn't that much difference. Like but now there's relatively few I know that can kind of get by on one income. Multiple cars, as you know, like holidays are more expensive, council tax, all the things that you mentioned, shopping, just the inflate. Well, I know it's slightly different over in where you are, but the cost of living over here is just extortionate. Like I've never been
It's
one
it's
that's.
got it's got go on. It's got crazy
I
here.
just
It's crazy everywhere. But I'm the
yeah,
same. I'm never complaining. But I'm coming out of
mm,
supermarkets going, Jesus Christ.
yeah. And then you throw nappies, and you throw like obviously feeding another human on top of that. And yeah, there's a whole load of other considerations you don't even think about. As well as the worry of bringing a small creature into the world. When I'm not one that dwells on it too much, but it's obviously like in my subconscious. You think about existential threats and risk, and the world they're coming into. That is stuff you do worry about. Because you've got such a short amount of time where they're so impressionable, whether it's their eating habits, how they look to you as a role model, before they go off to secondary school and do their own thing, plus with everything else that's going on in the world. And I hate to sound like a dinosaur, but we remember life before social media as well. And we probably, well, I certainly don't, I can only speak for myself, know really how to navigate that space all of the time. So like for them, that no different is bizarre. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had this discussion with a friend yesterday. Like, we were talking about video games we used to play when we were younger, and I was like, wow, being a child was actually so great. You played games all day when you weren't at school. Then you knew your mum was going to cook dinner for you. You're excited. You run to the kitchen, dinner's ready. You're like, what's for dinner? You're sprinting in, and sometimes it would be something amazing. Sometimes it'd be a stew, and you'd be like, oh, for fuck's sake. Then like you could get down from the table and go watch TV for a bit. Like life as a child was such an amazing time. But like now, I think that you think that the average house price versus the average salary, but then you think about student loans weren't a thing just a couple of generations ago. So, you know, people have had more debt, less opportunity. They're getting paid the least to then, pay the most crazy amount for property. There's a really interesting part of Chris Williamson's podcast with Rory Sutherland where he goes, when you go to buy a house, you look at the maximum amount of money you can afford to borrow, and then you shop around that amount. He goes, but you don't do that anywhere else in your life. You don't say, what is the most expensive car I could afford on finance? You actually find the car you want, and then you make some smart decisions. You go, oh, well, I'll probably get one a couple of years older because it's still the same car, it's just a bit older. And then you accommodate that way. So people that sell houses know that everyone is trying to borrow the most amount of money. So houses conveniently just so happen to sit around the mark of the most amount of money people could get. And then, like one thing that kills me a little bit. So you work really hard for the government to take near about half of what you earn, but then everything you buy is taxed on it as well. So you're like, oh, I've got to pay VAT on stuff everywhere. Why? Because I'm already paid for it with taxable money. And then it's like, oh, you got to buy a house and you got to pay stamp duty, but you're like, I've already paid tax on this money. And then, so you buy the house, then everything else that you're spending on the house has got to be, taxed again because they're going to charge VAT on it. You're like, okay, and now I've got to borrow money and pay interest to the banks. Like the amount of money you actually get to keep in this world is so tiny. So much of it just goes back, but no one, that's just the way it is. So you just got to do it. Like it's flipping ridiculous that the most people with their mortgages, like 80% of that money is just going straight to the bank. You're not really even paying down your home. And then I haven't crunched the numbers. For me, buying a house was security for my dog and now for the little one on the way. But it's still not a mad investment. Everyone's like, oh, my property went up 10%. You're like, yeah, everything went up 10%.
Yeah, it's relative,
money's
isn't
being
it?
worth less and people use it as a reason to be happy.
Yeah, it's that relative cost. Our first home, we only planned on, it was like a one bedroom starter home. We'd only planned on being there for a couple of years. We ended up staying there for 6 years. So did absolutely nothing to it apart from something in the bathroom. And you do get those moderate rises in, oh, look, I've made this much on this house. But actually, relative to how the markets move and the natural increase of house prices, you don't. What you actually do is you end up taking on almost a little bit more debt. And it's a trap because you call yourself a homeowner, but if you're committed to paying a mortgage, okay, like some people can pay off their mortgage a bit quicker than others, but you are still indebted to paying this over however many years, 30 years, 25 years, 20 years, whatever it may be. So you're like a homeowner, but you don't actually own your home because if you don't pay your mortgage, it gets snatched away from you.
And again, everyone's like, oh, but my house property, it tripled in the 10 years we lived here. But yeah, the house you're moving into also tripled. So, it's not like the house you just moved into stayed at the same price, so it's this wild, wild west. One thing that is good in Australia is we have, as I found out, you have something here called an offset account. So any money that's in your bank account is deducted from your mortgage as long as you're on a variable. So you don't have to give the money to the bank to reduce your payments. You just have to hoard it. So the last year I've been hoarding as much as I can from dividends or whatever. And every dollar that's in my bank account is deducted from my mortgage at the end of the week. So you get incentivized to save, which I think is like a real nice way of doing it because the emotional connection of not having to give it back. And also, although we still have the cost of living out here, I suppose Australia, have you been to Sydney?
I haven't. No, do you know what? I've never even visited Australia. It's on my bucket list. I'd like to do a nice stint in Australia and visit New Zealand as well. Just never. I haven't had the opportunity to.
It's amazing, both Australia and New Zealand. But the agglomeration of the city is very strange. Where London, you've got the epicenter, and then as you move further out, the houses become cheaper. But here, the city is only 15 minutes from the beach, so Then this area between the city and the beach called the eastern suburbs. And that's where your houses are worth millions because everyone wants to be between the city and the beach. And then every single beach on that side, Bondi Beach, Bronte Beach, all those amazing beaches. But then you've got out west, and out west goes out west for an hour and a half. And like the further you go out, the rougher it gets. But it's real strange, but everything kind of feels so close. But when you want to live in the eastern suburbs, it's kind of what's happening in Clapham. Families can't live in the family areas anymore because young people want to be there so much that, you know, even I saw that the tube station in Clapham Common can't handle the amount of people because there's probably, let's say there's 10,000 places, or let's say there's 5,000 homes around every tube station. For years, only 5,000 people would commute because it would be the man from each family, in most cases, would get his briefcase in the morning like my dad did, get on the train, go to work, commute, come home. But now those 3-4 bed houses have now got 3 or 4 people, young people living in them. So now you've got 20,000 people going to the same tube station. So like families can't afford to live in these nice areas in these parts of the city because young people will pay more for each of the bedrooms that's there. So you're kind of seeing this weird dynamic. I don't blame the young people. I've been one of those people all my life, but it kind of pushes families further and further away and further out. And the stress that it must put on people is insane.
Yeah, we have similar here because I'm near the coast. I'm Shoebury-Ness, which I guess the nearest landmark is South End. But a lot of people that can no longer afford to live in London are buying properties out here that are right next to the train line so they can get in and out. But I don't know off the top of my head, but I can't even imagine how expensive it is to live in London now. Like, you know, for last time I saw is you're looking at the best part of £1,500 just to rent one bedroom. So, you know, rent a bedroom in London. That doesn't get you anything. And that's normally a stopgap for someone as well. They're not thinking longer term, you know, it's just to be in the city in amongst it. But you're
Yeah,
settled
it's
now.
wild.
You're not coming
Yeah.
back.
Now, like, well, I'll come back for work stuff, you know, but like I was saying
Yeah.
this to, I've got a business partner out here who's English as well. I said, and I actually said this to Duran the other day. So Duran came out, saw me for a few weeks, and he's going back to the UK. He's been in Bali for the best part of a month. And I said, mate, you should find somewhere. Well, everyone, it would be amazing if they could. Going on holiday for me is like, it's a pain in the ass because all my life as a British person, going on holiday is what we look forward to. 2 weeks a year, we're going on summer holiday, we're going Tenerife, you know, we're going to Spain, we're going wherever it is, you know, Brits love going away. Get down to the airport, have a couple of pints, whatever. But when I came to Australia, I was like, oh, every day feels like a holiday because you've got the beach and nice weather, blue skies, everything like that. So now I only really travel for work because going on holiday is usually worse than my day-to-day life. The sea isn't as nice. The water's not as nice. It's busy. You got to pay for parking. You know, like it's stressful. Like even I haven't been to Bali since 2019 because I prefer it here. People go, I should go to Bali. You know, great. But I was like, it's cleaner in Australia. It's safer in Australia. I don't get Bali belly here. Like, you know, I've turned into a right grouch. You know, going on holiday makes my life worse. Someone really kindly offered me and my missus like a beachside Airbnb to stay in. They were like, oh, you can come stay in this cottage near the sea. And I looked at it on the map and I was like, yeah, this is nice, but it's further from the sea where we live and it's not our house and we can't take Alfie. So I'm like declining these trips because I've kind of made my life here like a daily holiday. And that's probably the one reason that I've become so attached to it here is like, I honestly feel like I went on holiday in 2016 and I'm still here. I feel like I'm going to get found out. I feel like someone's going to be like, you've got to come back. And I did feel like that until I got my visa.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty settled. And like, you must get it. When you live near the sea, it's really difficult to move inland. You feel kind of trapped
I've
and
said that
suffocated.
many times. You know, obviously it's not the same climate over here, but just the opportunity to get next to the sea. Like, you know, I drop my daughter off at school every morning, take Daisy with me. We head straight down to the seafront because I'm literally 5 minutes from there. So rain, sleet, snow, I'm always down there, and you know, it doesn't really matter whether it's sunny or not. It's just to be next to the sea, and I think I could only swap. Well, I wouldn't like to swap, but if I did swap, it would only be for like more green. I wouldn't go. I know some people love the hustle and bustle of a city, but for me, I'm a simple creature. Well, no, I think I'm a complex ape, but probably have very simple needs. And I think probably, you know, without putting words into your mouth, I think it's more from what you say, like a testament to actually the life you choose to live. As you know, you've got relatively everything you want. There's not extravagance you're pining for. It's your day to day. You do a bit of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you do your work. You know, you spend time with Taylor. You know, you spend time with Alfie, and you don't seem to want much more than that.
It's also like I'm in a very privileged position to say this, but like my happy life here doesn't cost what it would cost in London. Like if I was to live in London and be as happy as I am now, I'll probably need a nice townhouse somewhere close to RGA. So we're looking at like Hammersmith. I've looked at them. They're about £5-6 million if I want a garden and off-street parking. So that's £5-6 million I need for the house. Then, you know, you're probably going to need a nice car that you're going to sit in traffic in all the time. So, you know, then I'm going to need 4 or 5 trips to Europe a year minimum because it gets very grey and depressing in London. Then, you know, you're going to want to fly business class because, you know, it's a nice trip. You don't want to be sat in the back. It starts getting very expensive. Whereas over here, you know, like my house didn't cost, my 3-bed house here, brand new, cost less than an apartment in Fulham. And then my gym rent is, call it £1,000 a month for the whole facility. So I've got my own gym, filming, studio, mezzanine, everything. I got
Is that
like
at your place?
130 square.
Is that somewhere separate? Because I think
That's
you were
somewhere
showing me
separate.
your own home setup when I last saw you. You were showing me your like a little home setup you were getting together as well. Or that, is this a separate? Is this
Yeah,
a
so
separate place?
it's on the same beach. So it's
Oh,
literally
okay.
like it's one roundabout away, and then my jiu-jitsu is in that same lockup. So I
Oh,
skateboard
perfect.
from where I film to where I train because they're in the same complex. And then like even if, you know, it's just everything simple. It's not this crazy life. I did get the crazy car because my life's pretty mundane. But yesterday, one thing again seems really trivial is most days I'll leave the house without shoes. I keep an emergency pair of Crocs in the car, and we've got a place here. It's like Sainsbury's home base. So
Sorry, excuse me. It was only because she's so needy. If I'm talking to anyone else and not giving her attention, she's. I don't know whether you heard her tail just wagging on the blind here. It's like that's so much
so
background noise. But where is she? She's behind.
we have a place here. It's called like it's like Sainsbury's home base, but it's called Bunnings. And it's bigger and it's got everything you need. And I needed a hammer yesterday. And I was driving past Bunnings, I pull in, and I was like, I've got no shoes on me. And I was like, it's completely fine. Go anywhere you want in the shops. No, there's always at least someone else with long hair that's just been surfing, not wearing shoes. And I was like, I think that could be the main reason that I've fallen in love with this place because I think I'm a secret bogan. I think I'm a secret, like an Aussie chav is, you know, bit lazy, drinks a few beers, goes for a good old surf. They're like, what are you going to make of your life? Oh, I'm just going to have a few surfs, mate. You know, like walking around barefoot. I think I found my calling.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to be said for that. Again, the simple life. Like I think with like social media and just how we're brought up and being naturally exposed to people around you, comparison, all of that is you're always pursuing more. When I often think people don't ask what's my enough. Like success is however someone else tells me success is, but what is your success? Like what is your simple life? What's your ideal life? And we base too much on it on other people. And
It's
it
easy
does
to
take a
get
lot
caught
as
up
well
in
to
this.
be self-aware and actually have a little bit of introspection
You
and go,
know,
okay, what do I value in life?
Big Luke, my manager. I was having a moan to
Yeah.
him once. Like, I think I was watching Greg Doucette on YouTube, and he was showing off his car collection, and he had a Lamborghini Urus. And I messaged Luke. I went, why haven't I got a Lamborghini Urus? Just joking with him. And he goes, I tell you what, why don't you fuck off to a city somewhere like London, maybe New York, and why don't you fucking work some full days, do 10 hours at your desk? And he goes, within a year, you'll probably be able to afford a Urus. He goes, or you can fuck off back to your quiet little life by the beach in Sydney and shut the fuck up. He goes, if you want money for a Urus, we can get it out your system. You'd be bored of it in 3 months. Or why don't you fuck off back to your nice little life and stop moaning? And I was like, do you know what? It's a fucking fair point. And
And
I
brutally
needed that.
delivered, so it sticks a bit more.
But it's so true. It's like, oh, I want this. Well, if you were to work harder and have a worse quality of life, you could probably afford one. Like, oh yeah, fair point, fair point. And then even then, it's just something materialistic. It's not even something that's really going to make you that happy. But yeah, as far as like moving back to the UK, the average Kelpie lives 14 years. So
Oh,
that's off the cards. And it was a tough
I can't
decision.
even. I can't
My
even
mum was
talk
a bit
about it.
sad.
Don't tell me about lifespans, please. I can't. I can't handle it. Dogs and lifespans. It just gets me.
My mum was a bit sad. She's like, I'm sad I won't see your child grow up because, you know, that's a pretty selfish thing to like be like, oh, all this lineage of family, I'm off. You know, I'm doing it on the other side of the world. My parents don't fly either. They're like a bit too old to fly. So there is the times you feel a bit guilty, like, oh fuck, am I being a shit son kind of thing. But then you've always got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first when the plane's going down, right? So like, what my alternative is to live somewhere I don't want to live to keep my parents happy. And although that'd be quite a valiant thing, it wouldn't be fulfilling kind of my values.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that message around the aeroplane analogy, and that how it's often, I guess, phrased or marketed is that you need to look after yourself so you can look after others. But I think first and foremost, and whether you call it selfish or whether you associate that with like negative connotations or whatever, is you're also like worthy of taking care of yourself and making yourself a priority at times. And you know, you got to bear those other things into consideration because everything comes at a cost. You know, so you're okay. You're living the life of your dreams there, and the cost will be possibly not as much contact with your parents and grandparents, but ultimately, I guess, like even if family is a strong personal value in you, is you have your family, your immediate family, like Taylor and baby when they come along, and Alfie as well. And that, you know, that's got to take front
Yeah,
and center. It is a hard one to get your head around, especially if you know you're if you're close to your parents as well. And I mean, I'm very close to my mum.
it's
My mum and sister don't live far away, but yeah, I understand that.
I'm definitely close to my parents, but like, so for me, it sounds crazy. If I was to use my life as being like a plant, the plant was doing well, the plant was good, but then the plant went to Australia and it just fucking boomed. Like that plant became bigger than it's ever been before. And then I come back to the UK, I'm a bit miserable. All the success I've had in my life has come from Australian soil. I came back to write the book, but I wrote it in Oz. You know, I came back to do a tour, but I write, you know, all of it. So, like looking at that plant, I would be an idiot to go put it back in the shade. And I feel like I just have so much good luck here. I like the time zones as well. I like the fact that when I'm up, a bit of stress, a couple of coffees, putting out fires, but then at 10, 11 a.m., everyone just shuts the fuck up and goes to sleep. Everyone. And everyone's sleeping. I get left alone. I don't answer my phone. Because if anyone's calling me in Australia, it's not important, right? If there's a missed call from an Australian number, if there's a UK number for calling my phone, something's going on. And then the UK start to wake up a little bit, and then I say, "Good night, guys. I'm going to bed." If it's that important, I'll deal with it in the morning. Like even just having that time during the day, I like it.
Yeah,
It's yeah, there's so many benefits to it, and people say it is far away, and it is far away, but it's still only a day away. You know, it's not like it takes 3 weeks or a month to get somewhere like it used to back in the day. I leave here on a Monday morning, and I get back to the UK Monday night because of the time difference. You get there the same day. Fair enough, you lose one coming the other way, but still, like I don't think it's such a big deal that everyone makes out. Obviously, when you got kids, it's a little bit different. You know, that's a
yeah.
long
I think
time to keep a kid happy.
that's the reservation with us. I mean, my youngest Jack, he's 2 at the moment, and he's a boy in every sense of the word. Like, you know, there's definitely evolutionary differences. It is a combination nature and nurture, and he's mischievous, doesn't want to sit down. He's climbing the windowsills like a cat. Like it's ridiculous. It's obscene. His tantrums is like living under a mini dictatorship at the moment. The thought of putting him on a plane for that long, it'll just be hell. Literally, you got no negotiation there at all. By the way, this isn't any warning because they're all very different. Mila, with Jax, it was like a baptism into parenting again. It was like we'd never parented. It was like starting from scratch. Like, what the fuck is this? We didn't experience any of this before. She's very creative. Like, will happily sit there, colour. She's quite sweet, affectionate. He likes rough and tumble and getting into mischief, which apparently I was very much like. So I can't blame him for it, but at the same time, I'm not putting myself through that pain of all that time on a
You know,
plane.
I uh, I I got my diagnosis last year for ADHD. like was interesting, but it was something that was really good because it was actually, I had a lot of traits that I didn't really know. It was my publishers at HarperCollins that were like, you should go get checked, because I just had these like
Oh, really? They
idiosyncrasies.
were the one that
Like,
kind of spurred it. Is that
yeah,
what
they were
spurred it
like,
for
you
you?
should go, because little things like, I think there was a few things where I asked for a 6-month timeline, not a 12-month timeline. And they're like, why? I was like, oh, started telling them what I'm like with deadlines. I was like, I need deadlines. And then I was like, oh, but don't put things in my diary because it ruins my day. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, if there's something in there at 3 p.m, I can't relax. And then just the fact that I wouldn't write for a month and then I would write 3 months worth in 2 weeks. Like, they were like, this is very sporadic. Like, and getting Tay to understand what I'm like, she now laughs so much because, like, I came home the other day. She's like, you've spoken about 3 different things. You've been talking to the dog in French. You started cooking something. You decided that we needed cardboard to go to the tip. You packed the car and then took a nap. She's like, it's chaos. It's absolute chaos here. But like, I had moments where I don't even realize myself. She's kind of like, do you realize what you've just done in the last 5 minutes? And we laugh about it. And she's really energetic. So we're like, if we have my ADHD and my missus's energy levels, we're fucked. This kid is going to be a nightmare.
Oh, your baby
So I
might
don't
have
know.
that as a superpower. Do you know what you're having, by the way?
Yes. I've been told
I
not to
won't
tell
ask
too
if
many
you have.
people.
No, it's
But
all
yeah,
right.
we
I
know.
wasn't.
Yeah, we know what we're having, and I'm happy about it.
Okay. I won't ask because I know that's an annoying question as well, along with what names have you picked out? Because people can't cover that. You know, if you would say like Gertrude or something, like it'd be written all over their face. By the way, I
I'll
hope
tell you now.
Gertrude isn't the name you picked.
No. I'm gonna WhatsApp you the name.
You don't have
So
to. That's really nosy of
no,
me.
no,
I wouldn't
no,
ask anyway.
no. But it'd be quite cool when you see it.
Okay.
Uh,
You want me to? I've got my phone on airplane mode. Do you want me to have a
yeah,
look
yeah,
now?
yeah. You can have a look at that,
Okay.
and you can just let me know what you think of that.
Okay. That's a nice name, and I guess is that homage to Irish roots as well? Is that
It
giving too
is,
much
yeah.
away?
So an Irish name. So my missus is
Yeah,
worried
it's a
that
lovely name.
everyone's going to fuck it up.
To be fair, there are a good few. I mean, I've got better over the
Siobhan,
years.
Neve.
Well, I remember working with someone and them calling I used to work in it's like in college. I used to work at Santander Bank. It was then Abbey National, and the person next to me was calling the customer in front of them Siobhan.
We've all
Siobhan.
been there.
Yeah. It's I'm sure it's the Irish strategy to just mess us up, everyone else across the world. But do you mind if I ask you about that? Because I wanted to ask how you feel like becoming a dad, and obviously with your upbringing, and I know you're very close to your parents, but you've spoken quite openly about being adopted and things like that. How does it feel to have like your blood? Does it feel any different? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just wanted to get your point of view from it.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I've always imagined that, it sounds crazy, but because the baby hasn't come out yet, as a man, you're kind of just a passenger, right? You're kind of just there
I
for
heard
the
it
ride.
described as shit assistant manager.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think it will become very real when the baby's born. But yeah, do you know what? I told my barber this the other day, and he was like, I can't believe you're adopted. He thought I was joking. I was like, right, for a start, if I was going to crack a joke, which I do, I would not bring, adoption into it. It's not a topic. I'm like, I'd pick a better punchline than that. It's like having an abortion joke. It's one of those things where you're like, so yeah, I was always known I'm adopted. I've always told people my sister isn't. So for me, it's like a good pub quiz. People talking about stuff, and I'm like, oh, never met a blood relative before. People are like, whoa, they're like, do you want to meet your parents? I always think there's a lot more complexities with meeting biological parents. Or it annoys me when people say, oh, so your parents? I'm like, no, my parents who brought me up. My biological parents are the people that gave me up. So like, people sometimes are like, oh, the parents that brought you up. I'm like, no, that's parents. They're the people that bring you up are the people that do it. adoption rates are really crazily in decline. So I like to be open about it so that people know that even if they do get, you know, a baby from someone else, that it can still do all right. I've got my mum and dad a Porsche. So, you know, if you're thinking about it, any listeners, that little shit, despite getting in trouble with the police and ruining your life for 18 years, could turn out good. But yeah, it's going to be
It's an arduous
it's going to be
process as
pretty wild.
well.
It could have been. So imagine this: my dad had to pay like I think it was like a £10 processing fee for the adoption thing, and the postman nicked his check. So we waited like another year and a half, thinking it was just part of the process, and then realised that the postman done a runner. It set him back a couple of years. So then they did the whole process again. They got my sister, and then got me 2 years later. So imagine if the postman hadn't have nicked the check, they would never have got me, which is wild.
Yeah, that is, isn't it?
But
I'm not a believer in fate, but I do believe in. Actually, you referred to it before because I think amongst the health and fitness space, we talk about hard work, we talk about discipline, we talk about making a concerted effort to work towards your goals, but sometimes survivorship bias and luck, like just plain serendipity, just a missed. And there is a lot to be said for that person. Right time, right place. But where do you feel that fits in for you, like in your journey? Obviously, apart from the adoption, because that was luck on
well,
both
like,
parts. I think.
when you think about, let's say, when things started taking off for me, I was 27, which is just mature enough to know what I'm doing in life, but just young enough to not be past it. 2014, 2015, or even 2016, Facebook video content started becoming big. So I started becoming a video creator at a time that video creation started. Instagram was new, so I got to, even though I was late to Instagram, I got to ride it as it became a video-based platform. Even little things like I probably earned my first decent paycheck at 29. If you'd given that to me at 23, I probably would have snorted it up my nose and, fucking ruined my life. So there's luck that comes in many ways. Similar to like Bill Gates, if he was a bit older, he wouldn't have tested the computers. And if he was a bit younger, someone else would have done it and beat him to it. So like there's all of these things. The kind of luck is a massive thing. Upbringing, opportunity. Even when I came out to Sydney, the fact that some of my friends had a spare room that I ended up moving in with, and so much of it does boil down to that. And like you say, there is definitely survivorship bias. Like, so I launched business mentorship recently, and pretty much teaching people sales, marketing, all that. There was a part when I was launching that where I was like, oh fuck, what if I've just been lucky, or what if I've got a good communicator, if I'm a good communicator from doing door-to-door sales or whatever. And it is very reassuring to see their success from applying what I teach them, because there is that massive fucking, what if you just got lucky? The hardest part. So yeah, I think there definitely is that. But then
Truth of it, for a lot of people,
is,
it's a combination of all of it, isn't it? It's like you grafted, and it was timing, and it was just that you knew exactly what you wanted to do. So I think it's just an amalgamation of all for a lot of people. I just see maybe in the mentorship space, obviously present company excluded, but there is a lot of survivorship bias and like this worked for me, therefore it will work for you. Whereas it's not as clear cut as that.
I even said this earlier on. I was like, so many people I used to look up to for being successful in their space. I'm like, you're just fucking there first. You just like there. It sounds really bad, but some people I've admired, I'm like, oh, you actually just landed in the right place, or lockdown came along at the right time, or all of these things. It's annoying because everyone wants to be a mentor now, and actually some of the most successful business mentorship gurus never ran a profitable fitness business. They were so quick to realize there was a bigger ROI on going B2B, and your cost per acquisition can be 10 times larger. Like your overheads, your staff needs, like as soon as you start to develop a bit of business now, so you realize that going business to customer is awful. Like we spent, give or take, £500,000 in 2023 on coaching in JSA. £500,000. I'm like, I should have just, I used to take the piss out of Joe Wicks all these years doing PDFs. I should have done it. Could have done it. Could have, fuck
Yeah.
it. Don't.
I
He was
totally
lucky.
agree with you. And this is one of my,
No, I'm
I guess
joking.
I see it as one of those, I see it as like a loophole hack almost. in that it's almost like I guess like the body transformation, but reincarnated in the mentorship space. Is that a lot of people that have only been in the industry, and there's not a slight on them. When I say only been, that's not to say no one can be successful in a short amount of time, but relatively in their infancy in their journey, realize how difficult that customer to business is. Like, okay, I've got a few years under my belt. If I can convince other people that I've achieved things that I haven't necessarily achieved, then there are loads of hungry PTs out there. I could doctor a few Stripe accounts, whatever it is. So almost a loophole a lot of people have found is I'm going to tell people to do exactly what I did, and it's going to naturally just work out for them. But almost there's, especially with you, there's a huge amount of individuality. I'm sure you've come across many people that have tried to emulate you in some way because I've seen your success, but it doesn't hold because they're not you. And the contradictory thing I find is there's so much speak about being authentic and being yourself and all of that, but it's almost by definition inauthentic to try and emulate someone else and all of their characteristics. Because at some point, that's not, even if you have some initial success with that and you might get a couple of viral videos, whatever it be, that's not going to sit right with you. And that's not going to be something you can sustain either. But you are you, which is why
Yes,
you can repeat that stuff.
it's also I can literally, when someone joins, I can tell where they've come from. So someone's like, oh yeah, not getting many sales. I'm like, how much is it? They're like, oh, it's £1,000 up front and this every month. And I'm like, whew. I'm like, mate. So then I was like, is your program good? They're like, yeah. I was like, cool. And so it works out to what? £45 a week. Yeah. Why not just charge them £45 a week? They're like, oh, I've always been told to get £1,000 up front. I'm like, yeah, but if your coaching's good, they will stay with you. Oh,
Don't sign the
okay. I'm
contract.
like 90. Yeah, I said 98% of people are getting to your page and thinking you're a cunt, and then they're leaving. So then people go, oh, okay. Or they send me this big sales spiel of like everything they do, like all of their offers, all their pricing tiers. I go, put a video there of what? You talking about what? Your program. And I was like, I say to people, I'm like, when you bought my program, did it help me being in a video talking to you? They're like, oh yeah, it was the reason I joined. And I'm like, so make that. Like, so much of it is just a trust thing. And people are just petrified that people are going to join their program and leave. And even if they do, I say to them all the time, I'm like, if someone pays you £50 and they leave after a week, it's still not terrible. You only had to write them a program and chat to them a few times. I'm like, and people just need that kind of reassurance. Whereas everyone's like, there's incredible systems, business marketing, paid ads, all of that. It's almost like we've got another wave of misinformation in the business space where high ticket, you got to charge them $3,000 for 12 weeks.
It makes me feel so gross because it totally bypasses, I think, what the essence of coaching is. And if you did some time on the floor, is there's a certain amount of like getting to know the people that you work with as well.
Yeah,
You have to
100%.
get to know them on a human level. And I think like where I got it wrong initially, I think when I came in, it was all about accumulating more knowledge when actually it was more of, I know they're termed the soft skills. I think they're just basic human skills, like just emotional intelligence and meeting people where they're at and having some empathy for where they come from in their life, and not this grind harder, just trust the process, just follow this prescriptive plan because it doesn't stick. And I find with a lot of the mentorship stuff, it's often the same regurgitated thing. So it's almost like mentors are emulating other mentors, and as you say, you know where people come from because it's a buy-in fee, a subscription, or an annual sign-up you've got to commit to, which is a certain amount, and everyone follows the same process. There's no individualized coaching there. Yeah, it's a real bugbear of mine. On the topic of while it's in my mind of emotional intelligence, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I find Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is like the physical embodiment of emotional intelligence because you've got to have some understanding of your own capabilities. Bear with me, stay with me. You obviously have other people, their skill sets and whatnot. You know your motivations, and when you go in, so much the same as you would with a conversation is, or even a disagreement, is you could meet someone where they're at, meet them with the same energy, or you can go in and take that pause, pacify the situation. And I feel like that's exactly what Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is for me, because you always roll with someone that wants to escalate it. You can either meet them where they're at and it gets a little bit more out of control, or you can pacify it, bring it down a touch. You have an idea of their motives when they go into a role. If they're particularly ego driven, you know they're going to be trying to break a limb or choke you out. So it influences your strategy and how you communicate with them physically.
Yeah, I like that actually. I love it. Like the last few years, I've pretty much been training full time. Like, just can't get enough of it. Competed at the weekend, fucking
Oh, I
frightening
saw.
every time.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy as well. Like the same primitive fears that you have in jiu-jitsu are the same as in real life. So you're driving into a tournament, sweat dripping down my armpits. I'm in a black and brown belt division at ADCC, under 99 kilograms. I'm like, someone lands on me wrong, I'll be in a knee brace for 6 months. Could be there a year. Could snap my leg. Could pop my hip, dislocate my shoulder. You know, worse yet, you jump guard, you get paralyzed. Like all of these things go through your mind. Then you start thinking about your opponent. What are their motives? How much do they want to hurt me? How much do they want to beat me? Mate, all the people that I lost to followed me on socials. So, you know, like they've been watching my videos, all of this stuff. But then
Going for it.
you
You
get
had a
nervous.
target on you before you got there.
Well, not even that. They just afterwards would tap me in the back, go, I love your YouTube. And I'll be like, fuck. But come the end of it, you realize that none of your fears were real. It was a great day. I dreaded it until it was over, and then I loved it. And then, you know, you have so many doubts about your performance, you underestimate your ability, all of these things. And the beautiful thing about competing, which I'm just getting there, six and a bit years in, if you don't compete, you're already, how can you say this? Just going to a competition puts you in the top 10%, maybe even the top 5%. And it doesn't matter if you lose all your matches. Being in that room, putting yourself there, there's so much like you've already accomplished just by turning up. And like people don't have this mindset with putting themselves out there for a job, applying for promotions, you know, going to other businesses, you know, starting their own projects, everything like that. Like everyone seems to think that for some people it's scary and for some people it's not. And when I go to these rooms now, when I'm in a sports hall, I look around and I'm like, everyone in here is scared. Everyone. And we're all trying our hardest to pretend we're not. And the way that correlates to life, like I know that if I just put myself on the mat enough times, I'll start winning more. But I'm not going to enjoy the first fucking however many matches. I'm not going to enjoy the first time putting myself there. I'm still not going to enjoy driving to these tournaments where you put so much on the line. Training, I love. Training, I'm very comfortable with. I'll train with anyone. But the competitions where the kind demeanor between people isn't as strong. There is no need for someone to take care of me at competition. In training, you don't want to hurt your partner. In competition, that's exactly what you want to do.
It's a different beast. I have this conversation quite a lot because I train in the morning. So we've kind of got like our breakfast club, if you like. So it's a similar kind of person that gets up in the morning. They just want to get it out of the way because they can. It fits into the day, whatever it may be. So you get this familiarity of people you roll with, and there's a huge amount of trust in that because you're taking care of them, they're taking care of you. You know, if you get caught in something, for example, someone's not going to tear your arm off. You know, they're not going to deliberately. Accidents happen; they always happen. But you're almost going in with this mutual respect, this care, consideration, to a total switch of mindset. Because when you go to a competition, they don't care. If they can break something, they're going to crank it on as quick as possible. And as you say, that's where the other thoughts of, I really enjoy my rolling. It's great for my headspace. Like, do I really want to put myself at risk of like popping a knee and putting myself out of training for a certain amount of time? And initially, I found that quite difficult because I can be aggressive, but I'm not aggressive natured. Like I can be in rolling, but it's never my intent. If anything, I probably I'm a little bit more reserved. Like I'll get a feel for someone's energy first because then I kind of know what level to meet them at, especially in training. But competition, you can't have that mindset. You've got to be the aggressor, or you've got to have a strategy, or you be aware of your own capabilities to a certain degree. So almost, I don't like speaking to people that I'm competing with before now because first few competitions I did is you'd have a chat, just like a whatever it was, you know, you're both scared, but then you'd see they've got their kids in the stand, and like you talk about the kids' names, you're like, I've just humanized this person, and then they're going to go in and try and tear my limbs off. And I'm not naturally minded like that. If I've got to know someone, is I'm not going to have those ill intentions. Whereas if you don't know someone, you've got that distance. You can dehumanize them a little bit. I don't know this person. I'm going to go in with the assumption that they're going to try and hurt me. And when you're speaking there about everyone being scared, it reminded me of something I read not so long ago about it's the fear of the fear that we have, because we don't know what the certainty of actually our greatest fears are. What we do is we catastrophize the future. So we don't even go through all the best possible versions of that. We think of the worst. So it's not like I go into a match thinking, oh, I could win. It's I could break my back, I could break my knee. And sometimes that just dead weight falling on top of you, even if someone's not put anything on, I find can be bloody painful. You know, if you've got a big lump and they fall on you, on your rib cage, you're going to feel that. Especially your division
There's
as well, our division as well. You know, you're higher up than I am, but our division, the heavy guys, kind of under 100 kilos, if they fall on you, you know about it.
the one lad that I had for the bronze match, a guy called Gavin. So I actually know him, and he's a fucking unit. And actually, I've trained with him maybe 15, 20 times, right? And he has always fucked me up. I have never subbed him in training. I reckon he subbed me maybe 25 times to 0 in training, right? So when I got put with him in the bronze match, I actually messaged him before the comp telling him to fuck off out my division, right? I said, you go with the over 100s, mate, because you're about 102 kg, right? I know you are, and you've cut weight and you're coming into my fucking division. He's a second row from Wales. He's a fucking massive lump. I messaged him saying, fuck off with your big cauliflower ears. Get the fuck out of here, because he's too good. So we even warmed up together, and I was like G'ing for him, and he went out and he just smashed a black belt in his first match. He's a purple belt. He should be a brown, to be fair. And then when we got called together, like I didn't compete hard enough in my last comp, so I beat my first opponent in 30 seconds, and I was like, cool, I can relax now. I lost my next match, and I had Gav, and I was joking when I was going out. I even said to the ref, like, I'm fucked. But someone said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to lose in style. That's what I said when I went out. I was like, I'm going to lose to Gav, but I'm going to put on a fucking show. Like, I'm going to try my hardest. And it was actually one of the only times I went out to compete and I wasn't scared. And it's probably the best I've ever performed. And it's crazy. I was fucking around. I was taking the piss. Then with about 3 minutes left, I realized he was fucked. And I couldn't believe I was going to win it. And then I took his back. And I was like, I was shell shocked. I've never been on his back before. I've trained with him 25 times. And I was like, this is too good to be true. I was like, what the fuck's happening? And yeah, like, it's really strange. Like, there's so much that I do on a day-to-day basis that I'm not proud of. Like, I like making content. I like doing this. I like doing that. It was like a drug to be proud of myself after that match. And like, it's crazy the emotions of fear that you have before. And like, I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is like, everyone is so petrified of putting themselves in a position where things can go really wrong or really good. But you're never going to feel that just in the training room. You're never going to leave training going, you're never really going to leave training feeling amazing about your performance, because it's training. And I think for the first time competing at the weekend, I actually got a taste for competing. I've competed maybe 20 times. I've never liked it. I've never enjoyed it. It scares the fuck out of me. Hammersmith Apollo, 3,500 people, fine. Competing, no thanks. And like, I suppose the kind of important thing is that people need to put themselves where they're scared. Because if you're not scared doing it, you're probably just living in a very comfortable place. And I think it's a real shame. And I know that yourselves, Jamie Alderton, like so many people like waving the flag of jiu-jitsu now, even people that probably thought they could hold out a little bit longer, even Phil Graham, those kind of people, like, and it even in first session, you're fucking shitting your pants. And then you're sparring.
I do if
competition,
I do if I have a week off. if I have a week off, it's one of those sports where you feel like you've fallen behind everyone else because you know they're there. So I get that little pang of nerves driving into the gym.
But it's nice. It's nice to feel something. I actually did a video today
Yeah,
about the diminishing returns of weight training. So muscle
that's
mass
going to go
develops.
down the storm.
So like you diminish what 50% a year of your gains. You
Yeah,
say you build £10 year one, £5, £2.5, whatever. By the time you're in your fourth or fifth year of natural lifting, you're working all year round for a fucking pound.
maintaining.
Like
You're
you're
maintaining
you
if
got
you're lucky.
CrossFit, High Rocks, or Jiu Jitsu. Like it's gonna happen. But if you go into CrossFit, High Rocks, or Jiu Jitsu without the basis of weight training, you're gonna die. So there's more of this kind of like training evolution where I say to people like, so many people probably are like, why do these guys and girls not shut the fuck up about Jiu Jitsu? It's because we probably all fell in love with weight training, then saw the diminishing returns, and then to be able to fill our quota again, it's such a rewarding experience, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I do it so much more for my. Obviously, I love the physical aspects of it because it's you're taking your body through these extreme ranges of motion, so you're getting some mobility to a certain degree, power, strength, a lot of isometric strength work as well. Cardiovascular goes without saying, but the mental health benefits for me, just there's a camaraderie of the same group of people getting together, and some day I work remotely, so some days apart from my wife, it'd be like just other humans to be around, but also if you're someone like I suffer with quite a busy mind, and so I know like people enjoy running and whatnot to kind of vent and to get their headspace, but for me that's too much headspace because then I just think about stuff. Whereas at jujitsu, I'm fully present because you have to be. I'm just concentrating on the task in hand. I'm not worrying about my to-do list. I'm not worried about what's happened in the past. I'm just there, and I really love that about that for me. It really brings me in the moment, and also I think coming from more so I guess my step into the fitness was through S&C, PT S&C. So it's more performance based. And then I got warped and corrupted against, like most people do, the aesthetic side of it. And I think if you go through that evolution, when you're aesthetically driven, it's like your sole means and value of the world is based on your appearance. And for me, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is so much more about body functionality. And actually, okay, it might come with the turf, like how you look and what others think of you. But ultimately, am I good at this sport? Is what I'm doing now serving me to be a better BJJ player? And there's so much more comfort in that, and almost taking a bit of pride in what your body can do a bit more. But you mentioned pride a moment
There's
ago. Is feeling proud of yourself something that's come naturally to you over the years? Have you taken moments of pause to reflect and
not
taken pride in yourself, or are you
not
always
really.
pushing the
I'm
goalposts?
I'm terrible at this. I suppose there's probably a deep down fear that if I'm content with accomplishments, that I'll stop moving forward. You know what I mean? So like, if I was to sit back and go, oh, that's good. If it's good enough to celebrate, maybe it's good enough to, you know, I suppose there's probably like a deep. Well, there's several things here that I've uncovered. One of which from the ADHD diagnosis was I need to attach anxiety to things so that they have the priority to get done. So I catastrophize my future a lot. So the diagnosis was like, yeah, I think you've got ADHD, but I also think you've got anxiety. And I was like, fuck, well, that's not a cool one. As someone that's not very anxious, she was
I
like,
can't put that in
but
my
the way I was
bio.
talking about, yeah, I know, like, oh, this is for people with anxiety. So basically, I'll have to keep conjuring scenarios of everything going wrong, financially going bankrupt, even things about like relevance. Like if I'm no longer relevant, I can't use my marketing systems to run businesses that pay for my life, the mortgage or whatever. So like the day I wake up going, oh, I could have a lay-in, that anxiety comes out and goes, you'll lose everything if you don't get the fuck on with it. So like that's the way I drive myself. So then when it comes to reward or like patting yourself on the back, I can be very robotic. Like even like Luke and I, my manager, we actually, this is our biggest gripe with each other. We'll sit there and go, oh, we just did a UK, no, we just did a Canada tour, USA tour, which did our first like 8 events in USA. We got me a 5-year America visa, which launched a drink, like all of this stuff. We go through everything and we're like, well, that's cool. Like we're like,
Well,
fuck,
on to the
we haven't
next.
even done it. Yeah, and in New York, actually, we're in New York, and we had a night off, and we just got fucking obliterated. I turned up to dinner smashed with Luke, with Chris Williamson, hadn't even had a drink, and I've been drinking cocktails with Luke for about. I'd never had an eggnog before, and like it was good to like let the steam out and enjoy it. But yeah, definitely terrible at that. I always really struggle with, you know, it's crazy because 5 years ago I said that I wanted the visa, the dog, the missus, the house, living on the beach. Like I wanted all these things. And like sometimes I look back and I go, fuck, I did it. Like when did I celebrate this? When I'm happy about it, but I've never been like, I don't think I pat myself on the back. I hope I'm a good father in that sense, where I can do all the things that I don't do myself.
Yeah,
Well done. That was really great. Don't say that to myself.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, we're all
it's a
biggest
weird one, but I think
hypocrites that way.
it's all part of like I suppose you're more worried if you're too nice to yourself that you'll stop being driven.
Yeah, I can imagine. Actually, did you find that, obviously with the ADHD diagnosis, is that's a double-edged sword for you because also what you struggle with is the thing that drives you to accomplish the things that you have. Did you find that a comfort, or did it just confirm what you already suspected?
Well, it kind of helped me understand why. So, for instance, I never wanted to particularly be a character on social media. What I wanted was to not have to walk the floor. So when I've made my social media content in the beginning, it was to evade the problem of prospecting. But then I got caught up within the dopamine feedback loop of creating content. Now, when I looked to it, for years, I would wake up at 6, go have 3 or 4 double shot coffees. And even now, the baristas were like, how can you drink so much coffee? I was like, I just love it. It was a dopamine reward system. Also, I can drink coffee and sleep. Like, I get stimulated by caffeine, but it's fine. Also, throughout, I've always had inversions to drug use, MDMA, and MDMA gives me a calming effect. I love it. It stops me from getting sleepy, but rather than getting like really wound up, it makes me actually, I don't want to talk to people on MDMA a lot of the time. I just want to kind of be left alone. I can sleep after doing cocaine. Like I had all these fucking inversions to drug use. But then I would come home at 7:30 a.m., sit on my floor and try and make the most viral piece of content ever, and then post it as the UK were going to sleep. And I did this for years, and I didn't even realize that what I was seeking was dopamine. Like, in some respects, the piece of content, although I wanted to help people, reach people, benefit different marketing funnels, I was just looking for a massive hit of dopamine. And what was driving me was just dopamine. Like, for years, I almost got carried away with a little dopamine obsession, even in my dating life, just like day-to-day activities, everything has just been surrounded by getting hits of dopamine. I became like a junkie to it. That's where the content creation came from. And then I have an extensive gaming background. I still play Call of Duty. I'm still fiercely competitive. Like, whether it's a game of chess, whether it's a game of Call of Duty, when it was like being younger, playing Age of Empires, whatever it was, like I've always had this drive to seek little hits of dopamine. My energy levels fluctuate. If I'm not interested in something, and this isn't just me being a brat, I just can't bear it. I have to sometimes just pretend I'm interested, and that's exhausting. It drains me. I've like but now understanding kind of, but then I get hyper focused in other areas. For instance, editing. For me, I could sit without moving for 2.5 hours doing an edit. And when I'm in that hyper focus, I edit faster than most editors. And then I complain as to why they're taking too long. But then if I have to sit, and again, this sounds really bad. Whenever I need to study a topic, I do it while I'm driving. So even if it's YouTube videos or even if it's video content in a course, I do it while I'm driving. Today, I drove an hour and a half to go get a pair of trainers and come back so that I'd have 3 hours of studying. Because if I sit at my desk, I can't do it. I can't do it. And so yeah, it's weird. If I can, even on TikTok, you see these videos of people talking, and then there's the car on the racetrack, like flipping over the cartoons. That's for people like me because I have to have almost 2 parts of my brain doing different things. You notice that
Visuals
you have a
inside
very
of
active
visuals.
mind. Yeah, like, so I need like system 1 of my brain driving the car and system 2 listening to what's going on. So yeah, I'm like that. And also I can't fall asleep without listening to podcasts. So you might be the same, that if I go to bed and close my eyes, my mind wakes up because all other stimuli have been dampened.
Mm.
So my missus now, even if I'm not home, she'll listen to Joe Rogan when she goes to bed because she's so accustomed to me putting it on. The second I put on a Joe Rogan podcast, I'm asleep within a few minutes.
Yeah. That's sweet in a way. I'm going to latch on to that. That's kind of sweet that Taylor listens to it when you're not there as a comfort. That's really sweet. I like that.
Otherwise,
Mate,
otherwise it would just be very weird sitting there in the silence. She won't be used to it.
mate, I'm totally fine for time, but I'm hugely aware of yours. And it doesn't feel like we've been chatting for an hour, but we have. Are you time constrained?
I'm probably going to have dinner in the next 5 minutes or so, but
Okay.
instead we could just pick up and do this again. You know, it's no big deal for me, but if this episode goes down well and people enjoy it, then more than happy to jump on
Mate,
and do it
I'd
again.
love to because I just selfishly don't care about you listeners. No, obviously I do, but no, I've just really enjoyed the chat because, as I say, like it's not like premeditated, planned. It's not necessarily fitness spill, but you have to get. I'm going to put this on YouTube, so we have to. Your cans are blurred in the background, so you can get that on there because I haven't actually had the opportunity to try yet, but I need to get on the new
Hey,
tonic type.
give me your. I'm going to ask you now for your address, and I'll get some sent.
Oh no! Oh no! That sounds like I was fishing. You don't have to do that. I need to buy some.
No, no,
Like
no, no, no,
everyone
no, no,
else.
no, no.
Just
You've always you've been at IFS. You've always been a supporter of everything that I've asked you to do. So yeah, it'd be my pleasure.
mate, it's a
Um,
very
but
mutual
yeah,
thing. There's a huge amount of genuinely. I'm not in the business of blowing smoke up people's asses. There's a huge amount of like respect because I haven't always had the opportunity to say just fucking congratulations. I try to with books and things, but everything you've accomplished, like the tours, the books, the drink, like huge congratulations. You 100% deserve it. And yeah, I think just having a chat aside fitness has been really nice, frankly, selfishly. But yeah, if it's okay with you, I'd love to do it again another time. Pick it up, hopefully before IFS Ibiza. But yeah, are you? Because this one's going to be slightly different because obviously you've got a lot going on, so it's not going to be. It's not going to coincide with the book release. Do you have? Can
no,
I
no, no.
can I fish and ask what you're planning on delivering, or do you not know yet?
For IFS this year, yeah. So it'll be just business to business because
Okay,
I haven't done enough B2C. Like I'm, I'm in I'm in the process of branching that out. I'm not in a time constraint because I'm changing publishers. I'm actually in like a little like breathing window between the two. Um, but yeah, so IFS will be B2B. I need more time to create B2C. And also there's just an ever-changing landscape with Spotify buying audiobooks. It's going to be an interesting one. So basically the writing process has me stumped is the majority of people, if they have a Spotify membership, will get the audiobook included for free. And then Spotify pay me
right.
for the audiobook license. But I think they pay you, I have to double check this, pro rata on how many pages that people listen to.
Oh,
So
really? That's a good model for them, not
yeah.
necessarily for you.
Yeah, but it also means that your barrier to entry for people to start listening to it could be the same barrier to entry as having a podcast. So
That's a good point.
every part of this book has to be optimized for audio, for experience, for even I'm even thinking of trying to integrate some kind of message in the audio to get them to buy the hard copy. So I'm still in that phase of making sure that the topic, the execution, everything's right. So actually, and again, I've actually come to realize I learned a lot about YouTube last year, and it's made me reevaluate everything I've like my books, titles, everything. So like I'm in a bit of a stage of paralysis at the moment, good paralysis, where I just need to make sure that whatever comes next on that front has to be good. Not that the others weren't, but it has to be like the way I see it is if you look around, the level the levels that people are producing content, podcasts is so high. Like you look at Chris Williamson, the level of his podcast at the moment, fucking insane. You look at YouTube at the moment. You look at people even, do you watch Matt Armstrong?
I don't, but
The guy that
just like the reflection of how people even prep their videos now, because it's, as you say, it's like visuals inside of bings, bongs, inside of like emojis with
well,
captions.
I think that's going to die very soon. I think people are
Yeah,
getting exhausted by that. There's a guy called Matt Armstrong, and he's already blown up, but he's going to get bigger. He buys crashed cars, and him and his dad do them up themselves, and he fixes them. But I've been watching him, and he is actually a master storyteller, and he comes across as just this normal mechanic. And he actually, his ability to tell stories, because every car that he changes is a different story. And I sit back and I'm like, fuck, if I could be 10% the storyteller this guy is, like, there are so many secret killers on YouTube that people don't even realize. Everyone seems to think it's Mr. Beast. But actually, the way that content's being produced, I think that we're going to see a big movement in more creator-led content. I think that people are going to start looking on YouTube before Netflix in the next 5-10 years. I think that kids, I bet your kids already are YouTube driven. They like to decide what they're watching. They like thumbnails, all of this.
yeah.
So I think we're going to see this interesting kind of change coming in years. But yeah, so like I'm trying to make sure that I'm in the right position to ride that when it moves forward. Do you watch much TV?
I do. Yeah, I say much. I
Have
try.
you
Yeah, I was going to say that
have
probably
you
the
have you
most
done?
important question I could have asked you today is if you've watched Shogun, do not tell me the finale.
Oh mate, it's tonight. It's tonight. That's what we've got. We've got the finale
Yeah,
tonight.
we've just watched Baby
Have
Reindeer
you?
as well.
My missus second episode in, she's a bit freaked out by it.
It is dark, and when you find out it's based on a true story, and the lead
And
actor,
he's the guy.
yeah, that was,
Have you seen Fallout?
yeah. I watched that one on my own.
Oh,
I couldn't convince Rosa to watch that one.
oh, I fucking love that. I love that
I
because I
love that.
played the
Yeah,
game when I was younger. I loved it.
yeah. No, yeah, there's a lot of little gems out there. I've found a few good ones on Paramount as well, but I don't know how you have it in your household, but we have one that we watch together, and then I'll have one whereas like when I get a moment to myself, that'd be my one because I know it's not of interest.
Nah, we watch them all together, and my thing on my own is playing Call of Duty Warzone. I play 90 minutes a day of Call of Duty with the boys, with my mates,
Good
with
for
one of
you.
my business partners, and we just chat shit,
Yeah,
and it's just fun.
and
And
that's
yeah, we
needed,
love it.
I think.
That's our release.
Mate, I'm really conscious of your time. I'm going to let you go because you've already been very generous with it. Anything else you'd like to mention just before we close off, just for the sake of the listener?
No, I look forward to seeing you in IFS. Look forward to chatting and catching up with you again. But yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you,
Next
mate. I
time I'm in
appreciate
the
your time.
UK, I'll have to come for a roll.
Yeah, I'd love that. I
But
was saying to Darren actually because always anyone's always welcome down to the seaside. My club's not huge, but it's a good club. We've got a good crowd. Not that I'm biased at all, but I'm always looking to go elsewhere. And it's replaced. Do you want to go for Nando's for me? Do you want to go for a roll and for a coffee? So yeah, that'd be great. But you take care. I'm going to speak to you in between anyway. I'm saying it like I'm not going to speak to you for 6 months. But no, really appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you.
cheers, mate. Thanks. It's been good to catch up.